What has been the biggest change in the history of cricket? We're going to be talking all of that on this episode of the Kingsgrove Sports Centre podcast. Hello everybody and welcome to episode 41 of the Kingsgrove Sports Centre podcast. As you can see, we are still in various parts of the country or wherever we may be. But as I said, we're going to be talking about the biggest changes in the history of cricket. There's been many. Obviously, cricket's been going for a long time, so lots to talk about. And joining me to talk all of that, we have once again, still socially isolating down at the Norm O'Neill Cricket Centre, Hamish Solomons. Welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Mate, you've been at that place for like 6 weeks. How's it going down there? I mean,
I know, there's no razor blades, as you can see.
And of course,
it's my ISO bid.
Your wife's hoping that it ends soon, just so you can.
She hates it.
Yeah,
she hates it, so that's why I'm maintaining it.
Fair enough. No more kids in the Solomons household. Of course, we're also joined by Charlie Carter. How are you, sir?
Charlie Carter.
Yeah.
Well, I've escaped isolation, mate. As you can see,
You're in
San
Francisco. Jeez, that was good,
that's a lie. That's a lie. I'm in my living room.
Okay.
I'm in my living room.
Oh, it's disappointing. We could have talked about your adventures in San Francisco. Anyway. Oh, and as usual, joining me here at a approved social distance, the man that makes this all work, producer Nick.
Hey, man.
Good morning. How are we?
Yeah, nice, safe distance. I think the minimum is like 1.5 meters or something.
Mate,
we got to have at least 2, 3, maybe.
Yeah, we're
Probably
a
two
long way
between
away
us.
from each other.
Yeah,
We can't. We're not that close. It's okay. All right, gentlemen, let's get straight down to it. So this topic was sort of brought up.
Inspired,
very good, Hamish. Yes, by a little bit of discussion we had on our previous podcast about once all this pandemic is over and COVID sort of finished and we go out to play cricket, that one of the big changes is that we won't be able to shine the cricket ball as we have done previously. It's obviously not allowed to use saliva, mints, sweat.
How long do we expect that to last for?
Oh, I don't know. Well, it depends. It depends on whether it's put into law or not. I guess if it becomes a law of cricket that you are prohibited to use it. So you could be banned for using saliva or sweat on a cricket ball. That'll now be classed as ball tampering. Who knows? But so it got us thinking. What have been the biggest changes in cricket? I mean, cricket started in there's reports of the 1600s when cricket started. So it's been going for some time.
Yeah. So when we had the discussion and talked about whether or not COVID-19 would prevent people from using saliva to shine the ball in the future, it, like you said, it brought up the topic: what other big things have happened in cricket that turned into a rule or a new way to play the game or a new regulation or et cetera, et cetera. So we put the question out to social media. If you'd like your responses to be featured on our podcast, we often put out questions to social media. Make sure you're following us. We're at facebook.com/Kingsgrove Sports Center. We're on Instagram at Kingsgrove Sports, Twitter at Kingsgrove Sport. And if you want to reach out to us, use the hashtag KSC podcast. You can watch us on YouTube. Hopefully you're watching us here and you're joining us. Or if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or if you use any other podcast platform and you want to add it, the link, the RSS feed is in the YouTube description of every video. So we put out the question, in your opinion, and what? What did I miss? What did I miss?
Don't forget KSCpodcast.com.
KSCpodcast.com. Yeah, that's true. It's also there. So yeah, we put out the question, in your opinion, what have been the most impactful changes to the game in the history of cricket?
Yeah.
And we got a bunch of great responses.
Got lots of responses, so we'll try and get to as many of those as possible. So, Hamish, what do you reckon has been the biggest change to cricket?
There's been lots of big ones. What I would probably consider the most important and the one that probably saved millions of lives, including mine, was the rule change in Test cricket and other forms of cricket of the 8 ball over reduced to 6 ball overs.
Yeah, right. I reckon maybe that should come back.
You reckon the 8 ball over should come back?
Yeah. So I go
Why is
back.
that?
I go back to 8 ball overs and just bowl less overs. Can't get mate, they can't get through. They can't get through 96 ball overs. So maybe if they reduce it down, we can get the same amount of balls but less overs.
Well, this rule came into Australia in the season of 1979-80, although the Poms had been doing 6 ball overs since 1946, and over time there's been 4 ball overs and 5. I think in the late 1800s there was 4 and 5 ball overs. 4 ball overs would have just had me confused all day, wondering where I was meant to be and fielding positions. I was a bit of a wanderer and found it difficult to concentrate in those sort of situations. But cricket coaches will essentially tell you that, the hardest delivery for a bowler to bowl are the 5th and the 6th ball of the over when he's at his most fatigued. So imagine then what poo gets delivered out on the 7th and 8th ball of an over. And then what happens when you have one of those shockers when you bowl a couple of no balls and a wide, and next thing you know, your over has taken half a session and you've got to be carted off to the hospital because you've collapsed.
Well, what about
myself actually?
What about in the in the 100? That's been cancelled for this year, but going to be starting next year. I think aren't they going to bowl 10 balls from one end? Isn't that what it is? Is that what it is?
Well, I can see the merit in doing that. My thought there is it just the one bowler bowling the 10 balls?
That I couldn't tell you. I'm not sure.
Or is it 2? Because I can see merit in trying to make the game quicker and doing more from one end. What slows the game down probably the most is the fact that you bowl an over, you stop, everyone changes positions, and there's that break where in this day and age we like to see the action continue. In days gone by, cricket was a social activity as well, and people would have their little conversations while the cricketers were taking time to change to the other side. But I've thrashed out some statistics here, and I think the cricketers that had to play, and the bowlers in particular, that had to play cricket back in the days where you had to trundle out 8 balls in and over, their statistics would have been a lot different. And I take our old mate into consideration here, Doug Walters, who, as we know, broke a few health and fitness records in the wrong side of the ledger. He still managed to take 49 test wickets at 29 with his trundlers that he bowled. Now, applying some Duckworth-Lewis style calculations, I worked out that Doug Walters' bowling stats would have been far more impressive with 6 ball overs. Applying key details such as durries smoked and beers consumed, combined with other details, most importantly, subtraction of the 7th and the 8th ball of the over, Doug's stats would have read a little bit more like 101 wickets at the amazing average of 14.56.
So basically what you're saying then is that Doug Walters without the durries, if Doug Walters had 6 ball overs, he would have been Merv Hughes.
He would have been a much more effective bowler because you're taking away those 7th or 8th balls out of the over where he's not getting whacked, but he's also starting the next over a lot fresher and picking up wickets with better deliveries. Right? And it's those deliveries that make the difference. Now, the design of the game for many recent years has been in favour of the batters, but this one took in consideration for the bowlers and has sort of equaled out the game a little bit. Now we know the batters, the pretty boys, that they attract people to the games, but certainly I know personally this rule change not only helped a lot of bowlers, but certainly helped me because obviously I modelled myself on my favourite cricketer, Doug Walters.
Yeah, there you go.
Man, that is some quality analysis. Who carries cricket? Is it Channel 7? Somebody, I hope Channel 7's watching that level.
I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical that you actually worked out you actually did the maths on that. Or was that one of your? Was that a bit of homeschooling for the kids yesterday?
Well, you know that with the advent of homeschooling, I'm now pretty much a qualified actuarian.
There you go.
I see.
There you go.
Right.
One thing to tell you that Hamish, that game isn't dead. The 8-ball over game is not dead. And now I've got to get that traditional mention of Devon League in there. We used to play a competition that was 15 8-ball overs, in addition to our 2020 competitions, which was a little bit stupid, really, considering that 15 8-ball overs is 120 deliveries, and 20 6-ball overs is 120 deliveries.
Same thing.
So,
but we had that one competition that was 15 8-ball
I think
overs,
we can just,
yes, I was knackered because I had a thing about bowling wides.
We can definitely take away from this that Hamish is better at maths than any of the Devon cricket players.
Yes.
I think it's what we can
take away from this. Yeah.
How
do you work that out?
Probably just comes back down to trying to make the game quicker.
Yeah. Yeah. So, mine is another a massive change, which helped the bowlers as well. Mine's something that happened way back, which was a benefit to the bowlers, because obviously when cricket first started, bowling was done underarm. You bowled underarm because the wickets were very small, and there was only two stumps in a bail. There was no middle stump. That came a bit later, but you bowled underarm. It wasn't until there's reports maybe of around the 17th century that someone started to bowl round arm, but it's probably not considered. It really happened until sort of around the 18th, 19th century, and so it's documented that a guy by the name of John Willis, who was a county cricketer. So it was first reported in 1822. He was the first guy to bowl round arm in a county game against the MCC. Now, he was promptly no-balled for doing so. Now, John was a little bit upset at this, and he was so furious he threw the ball down, got on his horse, galloped away, and vowed never to play cricket again. But he vowed to promote this round arm, overarm bowling throughout the country to make it popular, which I think he did. But the interesting fact is, he got the idea from his sister, who also played cricket. Now you have to remember back in the 1800s, if you're into your women's fashion. And you know about women's fashion in the 1800s, wasn't exactly practical, so the clothing they wear was a little bit restrictive, and so they couldn't bowl underarm because the ball kept getting caught in the
dress,
in the skirt. So in order to get around that, she started to bowl round arm, and her brother saw that and thought, hang on, that's a good idea. So he started bowling round arm, and then obviously you get into bowling overarm, and we have the game that it is today. Now, Hamish, can you imagine had that not happened, what the game would have been like? I don't think. I mean, we wouldn't be. I don't think it would not be where it is now.
I guess the question you got to ask is when they were bowling underarm, were they rolling the ball, or was it just bouncing once like it is now? Because geez, talk about pies.
I think they got to that stage. Yeah, they weren't just roll. I don't think they were just rolling it down, because obviously the other thing too, it probably started like that because obviously early cricket bats they looked more like hockey sticks. So obviously you were sort of hitting a ball that was low on the ground, and then obviously I think they started to go, hang on, maybe I can make this bounce and it can do a bit more, it can move and deviate. So the bat started to change, but can you imagine?
I wonder what the variation in speeds would have been like. I can't imagine someone coming in off Shoaib Akhtar's run-up to bowl an underarm.
That would have been it. Could you imagine that? Yeah, just pushing off the fence and running in and just bowling. Yeah.
That makes me wonder, though, too. I always wondered, not having natively grown up with cricket, why the act of throwing the ball in cricket is called bowling. But I wonder if it comes from the fact that they used to be thrown underarm, like you would in 10-pin bowling.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know which. I'm not sure which came first, 10-pin bowling or cricket. But
it's a good question.
Yeah.
But I mean, generally, when you the term bowling, you think of an underarm action.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. So can you just imagine? Yeah, can you imagine? Boxing Day, 80,000 people, Australia versus England, and the blokes just standing, just at the edge, just at the edge of the pitch and just rolling, just underarming one down.
I'm thinking to myself that if they didn't go, if they were still playing underarm cricket, there would barely be 87 people at the Boxing Day Test match instead of 87,000.
Correct.
they'd probably sort of be doing some sort of softball style thing, which would just, in this day and age, you're just delivering fast full tosses to a batsman. So you can imagine how far the ball would be travelling. But I've got to say, if I was batting against an underarm bowler, I think my batting average would end up less because I'd be caught on the boundary most times. I find it harder facing slower bowling sometimes.
Well, that's true. But I mean, like, imagine, so if you think about it, imagine that round arm bowling, so round arm, like, sort of like Malinga style bowling or overarm bowling didn't happen. The people we would have missed out on, we wouldn't have seen Wes Hall, Fred Spothers right back when.
Yeah, but what about Shane Warne bowling underarm spin?
Well, yeah.
I reckon he could do it.
Oh, of course he could.
He'd spin him 3 meters.
Well, I don't know. What you reckon? Do you reckon is it easy to turn a ball bowling an underarm
I'm trying to imagine it, like putting a twist to spin on a ball.
Yeah, I don't know. You get a good flick of the wrist, sort of bowling.
We teach kids to strengthen their fingers and stuff by going underarm to start with.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Doing underarm drills because you spin the ball a lot more. So,
I mean, I
tell you what,
he's a genius.
He'd have had some issues with his wrong and in his flipper though.
Easier to read.
Yeah.
And the flipper, but the back spinner, I suppose essentially that is the flipper.
Yeah, just flicking it.
The back spinner would have actually probably have come back and the non-striker would have had to have hit the ball.
Well, yeah. I'm sure they would have. Yeah, they would have come up with different varying deliveries. But I mean, missing out on the side of, Mitchell Stark running in, Michael Holding running in with Whispering Death running in, and Brett Lee, Shoaib Akhtar, Wazim Akram, Freddie Flintoff.
What about
Curtly Ambrose?
What about code jumpers? Code jumpers from softball to cricket.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Well, because they're able to, under softball is traditionally pitched underarm and with a lot of heat.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can throw them.
And get it moving.
You can get it quick. So I mean, you'd be able to. I guess they could have made a bounce. Bowling a bouncer would have been difficult, but maybe you could just bowl beamers then. Maybe
instead of chin music, it'd be toe music.
Well, yeah. You'd only bowl one. You'd be limited to 2 Mully grubbers and over because otherwise it was ruining the game and they were bowling 6 of them. It was terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that, Stewie.
No worries.
That was entertaining to think about and talk about.
Yeah.
What about Charlie? Has Charlie got an outstanding big change in cricket that stands out to you?
I probably wouldn't have just a single one. See, it was when you put the question out there, what do you think is the single most influential change to the cricket rules? You can't put it down to one, I don't think. I mean, we've already spoke about underarm to overarm. I was initially thinking when they changed test matches to be, instead of timeless, to being 5 days, and now they're talking about trying to get it down to 4 days as well. I'm not sure I agree with that. I think 5 days is a good time for a test match. Then you bring in limited overs cricket. Then you bring in coloured kit and a white ball. Then you bring in 2020 cricket. Now you bring in pink ball for the test matches. There's just that many changes over the course of the sport of cricket. I don't think you can really nail it down to just one. And now that we split it into so many formats as well, there are going to be things that revolutionise that particular format. Like we've already seen with 2020 cricket, it was less, 5 years, and then the IPL came along.
Yep.
And obviously 2020 cricket has got its place and it's bringing in the crowds and all of that jazz. I just don't personally enjoy 2020 cricket as much as I do Test cricket. Yeah. And to see Test cricket going the way it is to the pink ball, the traditionalists aren't massively keen on that, but I think it's a great spectacle. It's a good, juxtaposition of the entertainment of one-day cricket with the traditionalism of Test cricket.
But then, and it brings another test to the game. Brings another test to the the players. They've got something else to contend with because the pink ball at night time moves around more than it does that a red ball does during the day type thing. So.
Yeah, and they're even talking about another rule change as well. Like along the way, we've had different rule changes with the LBW and handle the ball is now considered obstructing the field or something. Or,
something like that.
Things like that. They're even talking now changing the LBW rules so that it doesn't matter where it pitches or whether you're playing a shot or not. If it's hitting the stumps, you're out.
What do you reckon about that, hey, mate?
Yeah, I don't think they need to tinker with LBWs much more. It's already confusing enough for me.
Well, does it make it less confusing? So if you don't know, I mean, like I think this is Ian Chappell's put this out. He's sort of saying that forget about if it pitches outside leg stump or if it pitches outside off stump or if you're playing a shot or not. If you get a hit on the pad and the umpire thinks that the ball's going to hit the stumps, you can be given out. So you don't need to worry about where it's pitching and stuff. And so, I mean, that would make it, that'd probably make it easier.
I tend to agree with that, and especially given at the highest level with the use of technology, forget where it pitches. If the ball is going to hit the stumps, if they deem it to be hitting the stumps, then see you later, pack your bags, you're gone.
Yeah.
Charlie, I've got to ask you the question in regards to the introduction of the shorter forms, but wouldn't you agree that the shorter forms have actually probably improved Test cricket from what it used to be 20, 30 years ago?
Absolutely. I think that the bringing the crowds back to Test cricket is definitely down to the influence of limited overs cricket, be it one day international, 50 over, or 2020. You wouldn't see.
But I'm talking about the way they. I'm talking about the way
100%.
they play Test cricket.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is that you wouldn't see the players the likes of Kevin Peterson, Chris Gale, coming to the fore in Test cricket and having that attacking style, and even to a certain extent, people like Steve Smith. You wouldn't see that attacking style in Test cricket if limited overs hadn't developed the way it has. We'd basically be watching Bill Lawry and Jeff Boycott.
Exciting. The corpse with pads. Well done, Bill. Well done, Bill. So it's hard, like you sort of said, Charlie, it's hard to sort of nail down what has been the biggest change because, I mean, that's maybe a good thing about cricket is that it's not stood still. It's changed and evolved.
It's not just the formats of the game and the rules of the game that have developed. There's other things that have come in, like the designs of cricket bats, the designs of thigh pads. My favourite comment that appeared in our suggestions was the introduction of the protective box. You don't realise how important it was. Until you get hit there.
I did quite a bit of research on
just
those
ask David
comments. I did quite a bit of research on these comments to try and pinpoint when these sorts of things became standard in cricket. And that was one, the introduction of the box in cricket. I couldn't find a clear date. I don't know if anybody's documented when that became a commonplace thing.
No, but I'll put it to you this way, Nick, though. The box was developed before the helmet.
Of course it was.
So
priorities.
We just, that's just, you can sort of work out, what we thought was more important.
Definitely.
So we're not worried about,
without a doubt.
We're not worried about getting hit. We're not worried about getting hit in the head. We're worried about getting hit somewhere else.
Well, that's just the male. That's just the male trying to protect his brain.
Well, no, it's just and the species, Hamish. We need to continue the species. If you get hit there, you could be all over.
But I
don't think the future of the human race is purely down to cricketers. Those two, so
I think,
thankfully,
too, in response to Charlie's comments, that there have been so many interesting big changes to the game over the years, and I think the point of asking, what in your opinion is the most important one, is not to say that there is one most important one, but to just get you thinking about the ones that have really, really changed the game. One that I found particularly interesting was the story of a cricketer known as Lumpy Stevens. Are you familiar with Lumpy Stevens and his contribution to modern cricket?
I know the name, but I can't remember why.
I've heard of Lumpy Stevens.
I think I know what you're going to talk about.
Lumpy Stevens in 1775 had a particular. He was a bowler.
Mm-hmm.
Had a particularly frustrating game in which he was bowling perfect cricket balls, so precise, in fact, precise that he failed to get wickets because it was cruising between the two stumps. Lumpy Stevens is responsible for the third middle cricket stump.
Good work, mate.
Yeah. That was a very interesting change.
Lumpy Stevens responsible for middle stump.
So I mean, obviously it makes sense. You shouldn't penalize a bowler for being laser accurate.
No,
if he's splitting the different thread and the needle.
Why do they only have two?
Well, they had two. I guess it just used to be a single bail, maybe between two posts.
Across and two. Yeah, and they used to be a lot. I mean, obviously they were a lot shorter because obviously if you under bowling they were a lot.
Sure,
they were smaller, but
he thread the needle so many times. He's like, I shouldn't be penalized for this.
No,
and after that, many protests then standardized to having three stumps. There you go.
It's really heartwarming to be told and to learn about cricket from our American friend Charlie.
Well, as I said, I
researched it.
I am so I got to give cricket a lot of credit for being as old of a game as it is to being very tediously documented. I was surprised looking up some of these comments we got from our listeners to find how accurately documented all these like years and even months and the first match.
Well,
played with this.
It is a sport for nerdy accountant style people.
Well,
lots of
it's funny you should say
stuff.
this, Nick. Only the other day I was watching. There's a documentary that's just come out, and it's only about 15 or 16 minutes long about cricket on Netflix, and it goes through some of the history of the game, and it's how traditionally there's been an English game, and it's England and Australia really have made the laws, but nowadays it's all about India. And India have control of the game as well. And it's a very interesting documentary about the development of the game. And that's another point as well. It's not necessarily just the laws of the game that have changed cricket. Individual players can as well. Don Bradman, for example, he undoubtedly changed the way that people viewed batting. Ian Botham changed the way that people thought about all-rounders. And we can go on and on and on.
Yeah.
Well, what about the first international match? For Charlie's sake here, the first international match ever was not between Australia and England, but between America and Canada.
Yeah.
What about that little piece of information?
Good to see the game
that's in
took
that
off.
documentary. That documentary as well, Nick, you may be interested to know that Americans back in the day, obviously they played cricket, but half of the reason that they migrated to baseball is because cricket was seen as a colonial game bought by the British. And in protest against the British, they said, no, we're going to do our own game. And that's why they migrated towards baseball.
There you go.
We just kept it. We just kept it and decided to be better than them at it.
I mean, that's the whole world's motivation for sport, isn't it? Is to beat England at all the sports that they invented.
Correct. Now, there was lots of people that suggested this was a big change. World Series cricket.
Oh, yeah.
So in the 70s with Kerry Packer, the well-known Australian media mogul, big fan of cricket. He wanted to show cricket on his television station, so he went to the cricket board, spoke to Bradman, I think, and said, "I want to pay you this much money to put cricket on my TV station." And the cricket board went, "Nope." So Kerry said, "Well, I'll just make my own then." And so he went and signed up all the best cricketers and started his own league. And one of the reasons for that was also that at the time cricketers weren't paid well at all. The game was making money through gate receipts, so the game itself was quite wealthy, but the players themselves were basically amateur.
They were getting ripped off.
Yeah, and they were basically getting ripped off, and so Kerry didn't like that, so he sort of signed all up the best cricketers, literally the best cricketers in the world, and paid them much more money than they were getting. So that's obviously then sort of continued on throughout the rest of cricket history. So I mean, that's probably made a big change that cricket went from amateur to professional.
Yeah. And it only took them 30 years to catch up with the ladies.
Yeah. Still probably catching
up.
up.
Give them their what they deserve. But yeah, I mean that's been pretty important for cricket too in recent years. Is the female game is recognised and the girls are getting what they richly deserve now. So that's been very important as well.
We got some comments on that as well.
Yeah.
But certainly that was probably for me the most important part about the advent of World Series cricket and Kerry Packer's input was the game went essentially professional, and that's what it needed to do at the time for sure.
Yeah, there were a couple of people that commented that they felt like money was the one of the most impactful changes. I guess players getting paid and being recognized for that. So I did a little research on that. Like tried to find when the first professional paid cricket team would have been, but I wasn't able to find necessarily a clear cut like, okay, this was the first paid cricket team. But we reckon back to the late 1600s, mid to late 1600s, at 1660, that the first players starting to get paid were done so by gamblers, because cricket had become quite a focus for people, placing bets on the games. The gamblers started to patron their own cricket teams to give themselves better odds on hedging their bets.
Yeah. Not much has changed there.
Not surprised.
So the funny thing is, in terms of talking about money, so back in the early days of cricket, you were actually looked down upon if you were a professional cricketer. So if you were paid to play, you weren't held in as high regard as the amateurs that played early on in the sort of in the English game. Obviously, that changed a bit when people realised that people were, if you could earn money playing cricket, then
it's not a bad way to make a living.
Yeah, I might do that. So yeah.
Yeah, right.
So it is interesting. What about technology in cricket? So what about things like the third umpire and DRS? Do we think that's had a big impact? Has it helped the game?
I don't think there's any question it's had a big impact. It's just basically it's taken rather than trusting a fielder's word at times when it comes to catches and boundaries and things like that. It's called into question some of the technology looking at the catches, because you can't get that depth of field with some of the cameras. There are some legitimate catches that have even because of the use of technology, legitimate catches have been given not out. Yeah. Having said that, technology does develop. And it has got better and better in the understanding of it over the years, saying, well, look, he's got his fingers underneath it, but the camera doesn't show that. Yeah. In terms of run-outs, it's obviously been great, but it's also led to umpires maybe not trusting their own judgment and just going, right, I'm not sure, not my problem. As,
I'd say I mean, if you look at it, if you actually watch some cricket, they don't stand at square leg anymore. Because if they stand at square leg, they get way of the camera. So they actually don't. They don't give decisions in run-outs anymore. They just go straight to the third umpire.
I'm all in favour of using technology to ensure that a correct decision has been made. However, sometimes that will take away from a unique moment. For example, Moeen Ali took a hat-trick to win a test match for England a couple of years ago against South Africa, but his hat-trick ball was an absolutely plumb LBW that wasn't given. And it's only because they went to a review that it was given, and he got his hat-trick.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think when there's so much on the line in this day and age at the highest levels, so many supporters, so much money involved, and obviously you're playing for rankings and to be the best that you can be and the number one team in the world and stuff like that. If you've got technology, you've got to use it. And I think it's one of those situations where sometimes you'll whinge because they're using too much technology. But if you weren't using that technology and wrong decisions were being made, there'd be more whinging.
Yeah, true.
So I think, the game's just got to evolve in that way. And traditionalists like us, if we're a little bit grey in the beard, we'll try and cling on to the old ways. But I think you just got to go with the flow and use technology where common sense prevails, and hopefully get more right decisions than wrong.
Yeah.
Speaking of technology, yes. I found some of the comments about cricket bat technology to be very interesting. Yeah. I think we take for granted, and it's in the rules now, that cricket bats have to be made out of wood. But can you guys tell me when it was actually put into the rules that the cricket bat had to be made out of wood?
1970 something, when old mate came out with an aluminium bat.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Dennis Lilly's
what on Charlie?
Dennis Lilly's combat made out of aluminum. Up until that,
or aluminium for those.
Oh, right.
That don't understand. Sorry.
Thank you for taking the lead on that one, Stu.
Yeah, up until that point, there was no specific rule that the bat had to be made out of wood, and it was that incident that they finally said, okay, now it's in writing. It's got to be made out of wood.
I think I sent you the link of that video before, Nick. I don't know. It's definitely worth a watch. You just go ping.
Yep. Yeah. And also there's also
I love how he flings the bat too.
Yeah, just.
Where is that bat? Doesn't Harry have it in the museum?
Yeah.
He's got one in the museum.
Yeah.
Also, there are regulations about bat sizes, and that's gone through many changes over the years. The most interesting case of which to me came out of a rule change in 1774 in response to an incident from 1771 known as the Monster Bat Incident. Are you guys aware of what happened in the Monster Bat Incident?
I think so. Yeah, is this the one where the guy came out to bat and the bat was wider than the wicket?
It was the width of the wicket, so that the bowler literally just couldn't get it past him.
Didn't they do that in the goodies?
Yeah. Probably.
You'll have to inform me. I don't know about the
goodies. The goodies was a English comedy show from the 70s.
But just imagining a guy basically with a giant cutting board on a handle or tabletop on a handle Just
Yep.
setting it down.
Good luck, boys.
Planting it.
Yeah.
Wicket wit.
Not looking to get any runs, but yeah, just you're not going to get me out.
I thought that was a fantastic story.
No,
Not like this anymore.
That's not. That wasn't a revolution, Charlie. Put it away.
No, I'm not making the argument the woodworm is revolutionary. I'm merely illustrating that this bat is this wide. Forget the cutout bit.
Yeah.
You can add at least another 2 of those. That's how wide this particular bat was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I mean, obviously, yeah. So the cricket bat's obviously gone through many.
Yeah.
Yeah,
a lot
many
of changes to cricket bat.
Obviously changes in terms of the size and I mean, I always thought it was supposed to be made out of wood, but there you go.
Yeah, actually wasn't in the rules.
What
until
about
combat.
What about the Kookaburra Bat a few years ago? What did it have on the back? Was it some
graphite.
sort of Kevlar or something?
Graphite. Had graphite on the back of it, yeah. And so they claimed that it wasn't there for performance. It was more for strength. They had some issues, in the seasons before with bats breaking, so they came up with this sheet of graphite on the back of it to make the bat stronger. So Ponting used it in the 2005 Ashes series. Scored some runs with that, and I think because he went so well, they banned it.
I think they were talking about banning it before he went well.
Yeah, possibly, but yeah, so they sort of banned it. So now technically you can still make a bat with that on it, but you just can't use it in sort of first class or international cricket. You are able to make a bat, and again, you can make a bat out of other material, but you can't use it in sort of matches per se. There's sort of
and it's got to be things. One solid piece as well. It can't be spliced and bits of wood glued together. Can't be three different pieces of wood put together. Yeah, correct. So yeah, but again, like you can make a bat if you want to make a bat like that. You can make that bat, but you just wouldn't be able to use it really in any sort of game. So there are sort of lots of different things. What about there's a couple of people mentioned. What about covered pitches? Could have made an inappropriate Shires Club joke there. Basically, I suppose it's revolutionary in its own way, isn't it? It meant that you could have some pace and bounce while playing in England.
Yeah, well, and the fact that obviously, the wicket sort of stayed in this generally in the same condition. It wasn't affected by weather. Again, for those that didn't know, before sort of the 1960s, if it rained, you went off, but the wicket was uncovered. So you used to have to go out in what they called bat on a sticky, Hamish. And, the ball could do all sorts of things. I know there's a famous incident in one of the Ashes tests in the 30s with Bradman. I think they reversed the order with Australia. So I think Bradman ended up going out batted about number 8. So, they'd send 10 and 11 out when it was a bit damp and they could cop some in the body and then it dried out and then the batsman came in after that.
Yeah.
Look, that's another example, I suppose, of how everything develops.
Yeah.
Because not only did we go from uncovered pitches to putting tarpaulin down, then we had the wheel-on covers. And now these days, a lot of the grounds have got hover covers where they can actually control the temperate conditions under the cover and for the pitch.
Yeah. Plus, also, then you've just got how pitches are prepared and curated. That's improved.
I think having covers, I think it's more so than revolutionary, just common sense, isn't it?
Well, yeah, you would have thought so. Yeah, you would have thought. But, obviously not.
Safety-wise,
well,
Blake's getting pinned left, right and centre.
Yeah. I think that...
They say it's an excuse for old-school cricketers to say, we were more skillful because we played on uncovered wickets, and that's probably the case. But the fact remains that cricket's probably a better game when you're playing on a dry pitch and, not...
Well, how many runs would Bradman have scored if he was playing on covered wickets?
He probably... It's an interesting point. It probably was one of the things that,
but would he have averaged less because he was facing 8 balls, not 6?
Well, that's a point, but you've got to also understand that playing on uncovered wickets would have been slightly disadvantageous to bowlers because they're not able to bowl at full tilt, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And Stu, you talk about Bradman and covered pitches. I'm thinking that maybe because they would be a bit more true and a bit more bouncy. Old mate, what's his name that did the leg theory, the body line?
Yeah.
That was the only effective tactic against Bradman. I think we would have seen more of that.
Possibly, but then
they did, about old mate Larwood.
Yeah, but then they did ban it though. They banned it after it, so it wouldn't have been Wouldn't have done that much.
Yeah, but it would have been easier. Well, my point being, it would have been easier to bowl 1 or 2 bounces and over at Bradman with some effect than it would have been on uncovered pitches.
Possibly, but he might have played the hook and pull shot better. Who knows?
Fred Truman would have got him. You remember Fred Truman's story about his bowling against Don Bradman, and I told you that one?
No.
Oh, well, he said, I was magnificent this test. I opened the ball in Kelmina ball. I bowled this away swinger, took the outside edge, gone. 0 for 1. Lovely. Next ball, I come in. Lovely in swinger, took out middle stump, gone. None for 2. Then Don Bradman walks into bat, and I come in, a ball this out swinger. Nick caught at first slip, 3 for 360.
I love it. He was a well-known dinner speaker after his cricket career, wasn't he?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, superb.
Great. No, and this is slightly off topic, but you've just reminded me like a Bradman story. It was funny. Murph Hughes tells the story that in the 80s, Australia was playing the West Indies in Adelaide, and Bradman, also living in Adelaide, came into the Australian dressing rooms after we'd batted and probably didn't do that well, and Merv says to the Don, he says, "How do you reckon you go against these blokes, the West Indies? You reckon you'd go okay?" And Don sort of thought for a while. And he said, "No, I'd probably average about 50." And Merv goes, "Really? You like only that much?" And he goes, "Yeah, well, I am 70, so."
I've heard, Stu, in that same series, there was one particular game where the Australian tail was staying in and Merv Hughes is in the tail and he batted on for a little while. And it was West Indies again.
Yes.
And the same thing, they come into the dressing room. Every West Indian player was very respectful of Don Bradman, except for one, and I can't remember which one. But he sat down, he didn't. All the rest of them shake hands, makes his way along. And when he finally gets to this one lad sitting down, he goes, you Don Bradman, if I bowl against you, I kill you. I get you out easy, man, like this. And Don Bradman apparently turned around and said, you couldn't even get out Merv Hughes. You have no chance against me.
Yes, I heard that one too. Yep. Yeah, that's a good one. Man. That's a good one. Oh, dear.
Anyway, well, perhaps that's a development in the game. Humour and sledging.
Huh? Possibly. Yeah. Surely that would have started from day one. Surely that would have happened from day one.
That's been there since day one, but it's not really been widely known about until
surely someone
20,
would
30 years.
Surely after someone played a miss at the first few, they would have got, come on, mate, it's red and round, have a go. Surely.
But when they were bowling underarm, did they actually play and miss?
Well, I don't know. I wasn't there, mate. I don't know. But
apparently for Lumpy Stevens.
Well, they missed, or someone was missing them. That's another good question. How you missing them?
He must have been a lethal underarm bowler.
Must have been. He must have been accurate though. If he was getting it through the two, it must have been. I don't know. Ridiculous. Yeah. Anyway,
I find it hard to be accurate underarm.
Yeah,
just go all over the place.
Yeah. Well, really?
Are you not that good? Too.
I don't know. Anyway.
It's funny that you mentioned it earlier, Hamish, in passing, but out of all the responses we got about big changes in cricket that were impactful, Duckworth Lewis was nowhere to be found. Nobody said anything.
Yeah.
Nobody said anything about Duckworth Lewis.
That's because no one understands. No one knows
what it is.
No one dares go there because it'll just inspire conversation that no one will get.
No. No one's getting that. I think they've added a bit. Haven't they added a bit to it? Duckworth Lewis doing now.
I think some blokes jumped on the back of it. It's worked out based on averages of innings over the history of cricket. So it's the whole thing calculation is going to have changed by now.
I've got no idea.
Mr. Lewis recently passed away.
Did he?
Yeah. Soul and mathematical brain, rest in peace.
Yeah.
Oh dear. One of the greats of the game.
It's almost one of the 12th man things. So what you have to do is tell us how many number of spanners there are in a SIP Chrome toolkit divided by the number of balls faced by the number of balls bowled.
Yeah. the old SIP Chrome competition. Yeah, correct. Yeah. What about helmets or protective gear in general? And the improvement in that, do you reckon how much of a difference does that make?
Well, they've evolved from wearing motorcycle helmets to what they wear today. So they've definitely developed over the years. And on a serious note, obviously in recent years, obviously with the passing of Phil Hughes and the development of the the stem guard and the neck protection as well. I actually, for the first time, watched the test last night on Amazon Prime, and that bit where Steve Smith got hit and the reaction around that. And concussion protocol and things like that. So yes, it's definitely, it's like you say, it's had a massive effect on the game in that it now gives the batsman the confidence to take on the short ball, which again leads to fantastic theatre. Like you watch Brett Lee steaming in at Kevin Peterson and Freddie Flintoff in the 2005 Ashes. That's just cricketing theatre at its best for me.
But I mean, like you tend to get again, like from the older players that play without helmets, they reckon that the guys aren't playing the hook and pull shot better or playing the short ball better in general because they don't watch the ball. They don't get back and across. They don't get sort of inside the line of the ball. So they think it's had a detrimental effect on playing.
There's arguments either way. I suppose,
rather than obviously improving safety, but then guys are getting hit more because they're not playing it well enough.
Yeah, it's just the direction the game goes when you introduce certain elements and things to it. That the game is not going to stay the same. We've learnt that over the years, and if you introduce one thing, then it will change and go in a certain direction. Look, I think it's one of those things. No one likes to see anyone getting injured playing a sport because then it reflects down to the junior levels and whatnot. Yeah. So you got to do what you got to do to ensure that parents who are encouraging youngsters or their young children to play cricket feel that it's safe.
Yeah.
So, you do what's required in that respect.
So, probably I reckon maybe just in wrapping up, what do you reckon is going to happen with the cricket ball? So once we're out of this COVID-19 situation and we get back to playing cricket, do you think there'll be, if they obviously ban how players look after a cricket ball, manipulate a cricket ball, do you think there'll be massive changes to the cricket ball? Do you think Warnie was talking about having one side weighted more than the other? Richard Hadley talking about balls with the bigger seam. Do you get a ball that's it's got a shiny side on one side and a rough side on the other straight away? Is there a resin or some substance that's given to the umpire that the umpire can dish out the players look after the ball?
I think personally that you get into very, very murky waters if you start saying or legalizing certain substances but not others. I think that the focus on shining the cricket ball generally has been trying to keep moisture off it, especially if you're trying to induce reverse swing.
Well, I think isn't that the other way around? Like sometimes you want to load up one side with moisture, so then it reverses.
Sometimes, yes, but you don't at the start when it's
at the start. You want to keep it dry. Yeah,
you want to keep it dry, exactly right, and to induce reverse swing. I think there's going to be protocols with regards to sweat and sun cream and this, that, and the other. But I think if you start saying, okay, for the next 2 seasons or however long it might be, now you're allowed to put Vaseline on one side and keep that sandpaper in your other pocket. I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah. Well, it's like I think Hamish mentioned in our previous podcast that maybe it would be something that have a bit more control. Were you going back to that point, Hamish?
Yeah, look, I think obviously there will come a point where all this blows over and we just go back to normal and it won't be frowned upon to put a little bit of saliva on the ball. But I think until then, I don't think you can go as far as to use polish because isn't that going to be no different to what we deem as ball tampering. My only thought was that the umpire is able to have a bit of water that the bowler can then go to the umpire and say, can I just have a little bit of that water put on my fingers, apply it like he would if he was using his own saliva and continue to shine the ball.
Yeah, so I mean, I have
muscle
seen
memory.
Yeah, it's a muscle memory that you're going to stop. But I have seen on social media from a prominent cricket company that they've developed let's just call it a resin or a wax for polishing the cricket ball post COVID-19.
Well, it could be that sort of
ball
thing
tampering, isn't it?
Well, so this is the thing. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about making, do they make essentially make ball tampering legal?
The issue I have with that is you're adding a substance to the ball. The difference with sweat and saliva and Hamish's idea with water is that's sort of generally been accepted. You're going to get moisture from the cricket ball if the ground's wet anyway.
Now, it's not a foreign substance.
No, it's not a foreign substance. Hamish's idea there about letting the umpire have, I don't know, drinks a bottle of water and saying, "Can I have that?" The problem with that is how often do players shine the cricket ball? It's every delivery. Are you you're gonna slow over rates down drastically if you have someone going up to the umpire every single delivery and saying, "Can I have that that water, please?" And also, you're then going to encroach on the 1.5 meter thing.
I mean, I think if it's post, I think what we're determining is post coronavirus concern. So not having to worry about social distancing of 1.5 meters anymore, and then you may have to regulate how often you're allowed to. So maybe in every delivery thing's not an option anymore. Maybe it's something.
I think personally, how's this for an option then? Because there are certain types of material, let's say, that clothing is made out of, or cloths, for example, that you can polish your car with. Why not have everyone is allowed a lint cloth or a sheepskin wool cloth or something like that to hang out? They can use that on the ball. Not add any spit, saliva, no foreign substance, no resin, no wax, none of that. You have a cloth. What you can do with one side of the ball with that cloth, all your clothing is fine, and the other side you can let weather naturally.
I don't think you can. You need moisture, though. You need moisture.
Sorry, Hamish?
You need moisture. If you're a swing bowler and you rely on swinging, a couple of balls have been pumped to the boundary and there's a little bit of a scuffle, whatever, you need moisture to repair that ball or to maintain the shine. So maybe even a slightly wet rag that some bowlers have anyway, that they just basically wipe across the rag, and if it starts to dry out, that's when the umpire applies a bit of water to it. It's all done within the rules that they might come up with. I think there's ways around it, but
the idea of a wet cloth is a good one. I think the idea of having a wet cloth and a dry, or maybe you have two cloths, one wet, one dry. You can you're not adding an illegal, or you're not adding a substance to the ball, then you know what I mean, that wouldn't otherwise be there.
Well, I wonder what our listeners think. So perhaps they can let us know.
Yep, they can let us know. So I think what we've learned from this discussion is that from the beginning of cricket, it's never stood still. This is why we probably need to end this podcast. So I can't speak anymore. But it's never stood still. It's always changed. It's always evolved, and this is just going to be another one of those things where it evolves again and changes. Yes, Charlie, there's the wood one. Put it away.
I didn't think I was going to be on camera at that point, Stu, so I was just waving it around.
I saw it. You may not have been on camera. Hopefully for the public at home, you weren't. Just put that wood one away. Anyway, like Hamish said, contact us through our social media, which are, Nick?
Facebook at Kingsgrove Sports Center, Instagram at Kingsgrove Sports, Twitter at Kingsgrove Sport. Again, use the hashtag KSC Podcast, get our attention. Yeah, we'd love to hear what you guys think. Please, after you've listened and joined us for this podcast, tell us what you think of the guys' comments on some of these changes. Hopefully we got to the ones you sent us. Thanks for sending those in. And if you had any further comments on anything we've mentioned or anything we might have missed, let us know. Tell us what you think. Leave it in the comment. If you're commenting on this episode right now and on YouTube or Facebook, let us know what you think.
Yes, Charlie?
Obviously we encourage people to get in touch and give us their ideas. I've just this second had an idea, Nick, for a future podcast, whether it's the next one or...
You had an idea just this second.
Just this second. Now, you could do a Kingsgrove Sports Centre podcast quiz where you, Nick, have the questions and the answers. You don't tell us. Me versus Hamish versus Stu.
Yeah, we could do that.
Love that idea.
That's a good idea.
I absolutely love that. Because one of my favorite things to do as the uneducated producer of this podcast is to quiz you guys
I reckon Nick would be more equipped to answer a lot of the questions after his research he's done today.
True, man. I learned a lot.
Even more than we did.
Preparing for this podcast. But no, one of my favorite things to do is quiz you guys on stats and trivia about cricket, because all of you are quite knowledgeable, and it's always fun for me to see who's the most knowledgeable. I will say, in my experience, I think the person who tends to answer like offhand trivia questions most is Stuart. Stuart tends to know
that's because he is a certified cricket nothing.
He is.
Stu tends to know
dent of the game.
He tends to be the
I just know stuff.
Jeopardy level trivia champ of the.
I like that. I just know stuff.
Anyway, we'll have to set that up. That's a great idea.
I don't do the study.
So hey, if you're still with us, if you have examples of questions you'd like to challenge the guys to answer on a possible Kingsgrove Sports Center trivia quiz episode.
Message them because otherwise we'll see the answers.
Send a DM
send them so that way I can look up the answers and I can look knowledgeable.
Maybe Stu should host the quiz.
No, it's real fun.
No,
yeah.
Well, all right, thanks guys, thanks Hamish, thanks Charlie, thanks Nick in the corner, thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on another exciting episode of the Kingsgrove Sports Centre podcast.